There are questions that bloom only when daylight fades. Perhaps you know this feeling. The mind reaches for understanding, like hands searching through dark water. Tonight, I sit beside an old wooden window where moonlight pools on the floor. The air smells faintly of jasmine from the garden. I remember a story about a boy who could not stop asking why. His name was Kay, and he lived in a village where the river bent like a sleeping dragon around 3 hills. If these words already begin to slow your breathing, consider subscribing to find more evenings like this. A gentle like helps others discover this quiet space. You may leave a word about what keeps you awake in the comments below. Kay was 12 years old when the questions began arriving faster than he could answer them. Why did water always flow downward? Why did birds know which direction to fly when seasons changed? Why did some people smile even when carrying heavy baskets up the mountain path? His mother would find him sitting on the porch steps at dawn, his small face creased with concentration. She would smooth his hair and say breakfast was ready. But Kay barely tasted the rice or miso soup. His mind was already wandering through forests of why and how, and what does it mean? The other children in the village played by the river during summer afternoons. They caught dragonflies in cupped palms and let them go just to watch the shimmer of wings catching sunlight. They skipped stones across the calm places where water gathered between rocks. But Kay sat apart on a large boulder that jutted into the current. He watched the water move past him endlessly. Where did it come from? Where was it going? Did the water know its destination, or did it simply follow what came before? His grandmother noticed how thin he was becoming. She brought him sweet dumplings wrapped in bamboo leaves. She sat beside him on the boulder and did not speak for a long time. The river made its ancient sound. Finally, she said that some answers only come when we stop chasing them. Kay nodded, but did not understand. How could understanding arrive without effort? Everything valuable required work. His father worked in the fields from sunrise to sunset. His mother wove baskets until her fingers grew stiff. Surely the biggest questions required the most effort of all. As autumn arrived, Kay began visiting the river at night. The moon reflected on the water like a broken plate of silver. He brought a small lantern and set it on the boulder beside him. Moths came to circle the light. He wondered why they were drawn to flames that could destroy them. He wondered if humans were the same, drawn to questions that burned them from inside. The night air grew cold, but Kay wrapped himself in his father's old fishing coat and stayed until the lantern oil burned low. One evening, his teacher from the village school found him there. Master Yoshida was a patient man who had taught 3 generations of village children to read and write. He lowered himself onto the boulder with the careful movements of age. For a while, they sat together, listening to the water. Then, Master Yoshida asked what Kay was seeking. The boy explained that he needed to understand the meaning of everything. Why people were born only to grow old. Why happiness never stayed in one place. Why the heart felt both heavy and light at the same time. Master Yoshida picked up a smooth river stone and held it in his weathered palm. He asked Kei what the stone was made of. The boy said minerals and compressed earth from long ago. The teacher asked what held the minerals together. Kei said pressure and time and natural forces. Master Yoshida asked what created those forces. The boy opened his mouth, but no words came. The teacher smiled gently and tossed the stone back into the water, where it disappeared with a small splash. He said, "Understanding was like that stone. The deeper you dig, the more questions you find beneath. At some point, you must simply hold the stone and feel its weight." But this only made Kei more determined. If adults had given up on finding real answers, perhaps that was why the world contained so much confusion. He would be different. He would push through where others had stopped. He borrowed every book from the small temple library. He read about astronomy and biology and philosophy until his eyes burned. The monks who tended the temple noticed him reading by candlelight long after evening prayers had ended. They brought him tea and said nothing about the late hour. His mother began to worry when Kei stopped joining family meals. He said he was not hungry, but she could see how his clothes hung loose on his frame. His father tried to interest him in fishing or helping with the harvest, but Kei said he had important work to do. "What work?" his father asked. "The work of understanding," Kei replied. His father did not know how to answer that. In his world, work meant something you could hold in your hands at day's end: rice bundles or repaired tools or cleared fields. Understanding seemed like chasing mist with a basket. The village healer, an old woman named Suki, visited their home one afternoon. She had known Kei since he was born. She examined his pale skin and the dark circles beneath his eyes. She felt his pulse and looked at his tongue. Then she sat back on her heels and told his parents that the boy was suffering from too much mind and not enough body. She prescribed long walks and swimming in the river and helping with physical tasks. But when his parents tried to enforce this prescription, Kei grew upset. He said they were trying to keep him from discovering something important. He said most people sleepwalk through life without ever asking why. He would not be like them. Winter arrived early that year. The river did not freeze, but ice formed along its edges like white lace. Kei continued his nightly visits, though his mother pleaded with him to stay inside, where warmth lived. He wore 2 coats now and brought hot tea in a thermos. The steam rose from his cup and disappeared into darkness. He had started writing his questions in a journal, filling page after page with neat characters. Why did snow fall in different patterns? Why did some trees keep their leaves while others let them go? Why did memory feel more real than the present moment sometimes? One particularly cold night, Kei noticed someone else by the river. An elderly monk sat on a flat stone near the water's edge. The boy had never seen him before. The monk wore simple robes that seemed too thin for winter. He sat perfectly still, as if he had grown from the stone itself. Kei watched him for a long time, waiting for the monk to do something, but the old man simply sat and breathed and gazed at the water. Finally, Kay could not resist. He walked over and asked what the monk was doing. The monk turned his head slowly, like an ancient turtle. His eyes were kind, but seemed to look through Kay rather than at him. He said he was doing nothing. Kay did not understand how someone could do nothing. Even sitting required effort. Even breathing was an action. The monk smiled, as if Kay had said something amusing. He patted the stone beside him in invitation. Kay sat down, though he felt restless already. The monk asked why the boy visited the river at night. Kay explained about his search for meaning and understanding. He talked about all the books he had read and all the questions that remained unanswered. The monk listened without interrupting. When Kay finally ran out of words, they sat in silence for a while. Then the monk pointed at the river and asked what Kay saw. The boy described the water moving over rocks, the reflection of stars on the surface, the ice forming at the edges. The monk asked him to look again, but without using words. Kay tried, but his mind immediately began labeling everything. Water, rocks, stars, ice. The monk told him that words were veils. They covered reality with meanings that were not really there. The river did not know it was called a river. The stars did not know they were stars. This frustrated Kay. If they could not use words, how could humans understand anything? How could they communicate or learn or pass down wisdom? The monk picked up a handful of snow and let it melt in his palm. He said words were useful tools, but terrible masters. When the mind became too full of words and concepts, it could no longer touch life directly. It was like trying to feel water while wearing thick gloves. You knew water was there, but you could not experience its wetness, its temperature, its flow. Kay wanted to argue, but something in the monk's peaceful expression stopped him. This old man did not seem stupid or ignorant. He seemed complete in a way Kay had never encountered. The monk stood slowly and arranged his robes. Before leaving, he told Kay that understanding was already present. It was not something to chase or capture. It was something to notice, like recognizing your own face in still water. The seeking itself created ripples that distorted the reflection. After the monk left, Kay sat alone, feeling more confused than ever. How could understanding already be present when he felt so far from it? How could seeking be the problem when seeking was all he knew how to do? He opened his journal to write down these new questions, but his hand felt too heavy to hold the pen. He had not eaten much that day. His body felt hollow, like a reed instrument waiting for wind. The next night, Kay returned earlier, hoping to find the monk again, but the flat stone remained empty. He waited until his feet grew numb from cold. On the third night, he brought extra tea and rice balls wrapped in cloth. If the monk appeared, he wanted to offer him something. But again, only the river kept him company. By the fifth night, Kay began to wonder if he had imagined the old man. Perhaps exhaustion had created a vision from his desperate need for answers. Then on the seventh night, as snow began falling softly, the monk appeared again. he materialized from the darkness as if stepping out of shadow itself. This time, he carried a walking stick and moved even more slowly. Kay jumped up and offered him the food he had brought. The monk accepted with a gentle bow. They sat together eating rice balls while snow accumulated on their shoulders. The monk asked if Kay had been practicing looking without words. The boy admitted he had tried, but failed. His mind would not stay quiet. The monk said this was natural. The mind had been trained since birth to divide the world into categories: tree, not tree; self, not self; good, bad; right, wrong. These divisions felt real, but they were just mental constructs, like drawing lines on water. The river existed before humans gave it a name. It would exist after human language disappeared. Reality needed no explanation to be complete. Kay asked how anyone could live without understanding meaning and purpose. Did the monk not wonder why he was alive or what he should do with his days? The old man laughed softly, a sound like wind through pine needles. He said he had wondered these things for many years. He had studied in temples and read countless sutras and meditated until his legs went numb. Then, one day, he was washing rice for the evening meal. The water was cold on his hands. The rice grains made a pleasant sound against the bowl. Sunlight came through the window and touched his wrist. In that moment, all his questions dissolved, not because he found answers, but because he realized the questions had been asking themselves. There was no separate self who needed meaning. There was just experience happening. This made no sense to Kay, but he did not want to seem rude. He asked the monk to explain further. The old man stood and walked to the river's edge. He asked Kay to join him. They stood, looking at the dark water flowing past. The monk asked where the river began. Kay said, in the mountains, where snow melted. The monk asked where the snow came from. Kay said, from clouds. Where did clouds come from? From evaporated water. And where did that water come from? From rivers and lakes and oceans. So where did the river truly begin? Kay saw the circular logic, but said there must be a beginning somewhere. The first water on earth, the first moment of creation. The monk nodded and asked what came before that first moment. Kay said nothing, or perhaps something unimaginable. The monk asked how something could come from nothing, and if it came from something, what came before that something. They could chase origins forever and never arrive at a final answer, because the mind that asked the question was itself part of the mystery it tried to solve. Like an eye trying to see itself without a mirror, the boy felt dizzy from these thoughts. He sat down heavily on the snowy ground. The monk sat beside him with more grace. For a long time, they watched snow fall into the river and disappear. Each flake existed for just a moment as a unique pattern before becoming part of the greater flow. The monk said this was like thoughts and questions. They arose from emptiness, danced briefly in awareness, then dissolved back to where they came from. Fighting them or chasing them only stirred up more activity, but watching them with gentle attention allowed them to complete their natural cycle. Kay wanted to understand this teaching, but his mind kept generating more questions. Why did consciousness exist at all? Why was there something instead of nothing? What was the point of existence if everything just dissolved back into emptiness? The monk seemed to sense his struggle. He placed a weathered hand on the boy's shoulder. The touch was surprisingly warm. He said the mind could not solve the problem of existence because the mind was not separate from existence. It was like asking why water is wet. The question assumed water could be something other than what it is. They sat together until the temple bell rang midnight in the distance. The monk rose and said he needed to return for evening meditation. Kay asked if he would come again tomorrow. The monk said tomorrow did not exist yet. Only this moment was real. But if conditions allowed, perhaps they would meet again. He walked away, leaving no footprints in the fresh snow. Kay stared at the unmarked ground for a long time. How could someone walk without leaving traces? Was the monk even real? Or had loneliness created a teacher from his own mind? The next day, Kay could barely concentrate on anything. His mother asked if he was feeling ill. He said he was fine, but his thoughts felt scattered, like leaves in a storm. He tried to help his father repair the chicken coop, but kept hammering his thumb instead of nails. His father suggested he rest, but rest felt impossible when so many questions pressed against the inside of his skull. He walked to the temple and asked the head monk if he knew of an elderly teacher who visited at night. The head monk said many traveling monks passed through, but he had not seen anyone matching that description recently. That evening, Kay returned to the river earlier than usual. The sun had just set, painting the sky purple and gold like bruised fruit. He brought a blanket and more food, determined to wait all night if necessary. The familiar boulder felt cold through the wool. He watched darkness seep across the landscape like spilled ink. Stars emerged one by one, first the brightest, then countless smaller lights filling spaces he had not known were empty. A deer came to drink at the river bend. Its movements were careful and silent. Kay held his breath, not wanting to disturb its grace. The animal lifted its head, water dripping from its muzzle, and looked directly at him. For a moment, they regarded each other across species in understanding. Then the deer turned and melted back into the forest. Kay wondered what the deer experienced. Did it question its purpose, or simply live each moment fully? Did it suffer from wondering why, or did it accept what is? Hours passed with no sign of the monk. Kay pulled the blanket tighter around his shoulders. His journal lay open beside him, but he had written nothing new. The questions that usually flooded his mind felt strangely quiet. Perhaps he was too tired to think properly, or perhaps the cold had numbed his brain along with his fingers. He closed his eyes and listened to the river. The sound was constant, yet always changing. No two moments were exactly alike, though they seemed identical. A rustling in the bushes made him open his eyes, but instead of the monk, a fox emerged. Its red coat looked black in the darkness. The fox paused at the river edge and lapped water delicately. Then it sat on its haunches and began grooming its tail. Kay watched, fascinated by its complete absorption in the simple task. The fox did not appear to be thinking about yesterday or tomorrow. It was just a fox being a fox in this exact moment. When the fox finally trotted away, Kay realized he had not thought about his questions for several minutes. He had been completely present with the animal, in the night, in the sound of water. The absence of thinking felt strange, like forgetting the weight of clothes until you remove them. He tried to return to that state, but immediately his mind began commenting on the experience. How interesting that not thinking felt peaceful. Why did presence quiet the mind? Was this what the monk meant about looking without words? Footsteps on gravel interrupted his thoughts. The monk appeared, moving even more slowly than before. He lowered himself onto the stone with obvious effort. Kay offered him tea from his thermos. The monk accepted gratefully, wrapping his thin fingers around the warm cup. They sat without speaking, while steam rose between them. Finally, Kay asked where the monk stayed during the day. The old man gestured vaguely toward the mountains and said he had a small hut where he practiced sitting with empty mind. Kay asked how anyone could empty their mind. Thoughts arose constantly without invitation. The monk said emptiness did not mean absence of thoughts. It meant not grasping or rejecting what arose, like clouds passing through sky. The sky did not try to hold clouds or push them away. It simply provided space for weather to happen. Mind could be the same, vast and accommodating, allowing all experiences without resistance. This sounded impossible to Kay. His mind did not feel vast or accommodating. It felt cramped and busy, like a market street during harvest festival. The monk asked him to close his eyes and listen. What did he hear? Kay listed the river, wind in trees, a distant owl. The monk asked what he heard between the sounds. Kay listened harder and said nothing, just silence. The monk asked him to listen to the silence itself. What was its quality? At first, Kay thought this was meaningless. Silence was just absence of sound. But as he paid attention, he noticed silence had a presence of its own. It was the space in which sounds appeared and disappeared. Without silence, there could be no recognition of sound. They depended on each other, like in-breath and out-breath. The monk said this was how thoughts and awareness related. Thoughts arose in awareness, but awareness itself was not thought. It was the open space in which thinking happened. Kay felt he almost understood something important, but when he tried to grasp it with concepts, it slipped away like a fish through fingers. The monk said understanding could not be captured in thought, because true understanding was prior to thought. It was the simple knowing that you exist before any ideas about who or what you are. Even a baby knew existence without philosophy or concepts. This basic awareness needed no improvement or explanation. It was already perfect and complete. But if that were true, Kay asked, why did humans develop complex minds and language and the ability to question? The monk smiled and said these were tools that arose naturally, like teeth for chewing or legs for walking. The problem came when humans mistook the tools for their identity, like believing you were a hammer instead of the one holding it. The mind was beautiful and useful, but it was not the essence of what you were. That essence was simpler and quieter than any thought could reach. They sat in contemplation while night deepened around them. An owl called from nearby, its voice hollow and mysterious. The monk pointed at the sound and asked what Kay heard. The boy said an owl. The monk shook his head gently. That was a word, a label. What did he actually hear? Kay tried again, describing the quality of the sound, but the monk stopped him. Description was still mental activity. Could he hear without immediately translating experience into language? Kay focused on the next owl call. For a brief moment, there was just sound happening. No owl, no night, no him hearing it. Just the pure experience before division into subject and object. Then his mind rushed in with recognition, and the moment passed. But that split second of direct experience felt different from his usual filtered perception. It was immediate and intimate in a way that thinking about experience could never be. The monk said this direct knowing was always available beneath the surface chatter of mind, like the river bottom staying still while the surface water rushed past. Most people lived entirely in the rushing surface, never discovering the depths below. But those depths were not hidden or difficult to access. They were simply overlooked because the mind preferred complexity to simplicity. It created problems to solve because solving felt like progress. But some things did not need solving. They needed recognition. Kay asked how he could learn to recognize instead of analyze. The monk suggested starting with the body. Right now, what did Kay feel physically? The boy noticed cold air on his face, numbness in his feet, the weight of the blanket, a slight ache in his lower back from sitting. The monk said to feel these sensations without adding stories about them. Not cold that was uncomfortable or should be escaped, just the actual sensation of temperature on skin. Not pain that meant something was wrong, just the particular quality of sensation in this moment. As Kay practiced this, he noticed how quickly his mind created narratives around simple feelings. Cold became suffering, which became worry about getting sick, which became fear of missing school, which became anxiety about falling behind. One sensation triggered an entire cascade of thoughts extending into imaginary futures. But when he returned attention to the immediate physical experience, all those mental elaborations dissolved. There was just this moment, this body, these sensations arising and passing. The monk said most human suffering came from these mental elaborations rather than direct experience. Pain was inevitable, but suffering was optional. It arose from resistance and storytelling, like the difference between being struck by one arrow versus striking yourself with a second arrow of judgment and fear. The first arrow was what happened. The second arrow was what the mind did with what happened. Learning to experience the first arrow without adding the second was the beginning of freedom. A fish jumped in the river, its splash startling them both. They looked at each other and laughed at their shared surprise. The monk said that was beautiful. No preparation, no anticipation, just sudden sound and natural response. The body knew how to react without consulting philosophy. It jumped at loud noises and relaxed when safe. This animal wisdom operated perfectly without complex thinking. Yet humans often overrode these natural responses with mental commentary that served no real purpose. Kay noticed his feet had gone completely numb from cold. He stood to restore circulation, stamping on the frozen ground. The monk watched with amusement and said the body was an excellent teacher. It always existed in the present. It could not eat yesterday's food or breathe tomorrow's air. While the mind traveled through time and possibility, the body remained grounded in immediate reality. Following its simple needs was a form of meditation. They walked along the riverbank to warm themselves. Ice crystals crunched under their steps. Their breath made small clouds that disappeared instantly. The monk moved slowly but steadily, using his walking stick for balance. He said, walking was a perfect practice for presence. Each step could only happen now. The foot could not touch ground that existed in memory or imagination. This immediate contact with earth was always teaching something about the nature of reality. Kay tried to walk with complete attention, but kept getting distracted by questions. Why did the monk choose this life of simplicity? Did he have family somewhere? What did enlightenment actually feel like? The monk seemed to sense his busy mind. He suggested counting steps, 1 through 10, then starting over. When thoughts arose, simply return to 1. No judgment about losing count, just gentle return to the beginning. This proved harder than expected. Kay rarely made it past 6 before forgetting what number came next. His mind would drift to tomorrow, or last week, or abstract wondering. But each time he noticed the drift and returned to 1, something in him relaxed slightly. The counting was not important. The repeated return to simplicity was the practice. Like washing rice grain by grain, the repetition itself created a kind of clarity. They reached a bend where the river widened into a pool. The water was calmer here, protected from the main current by large rocks. The monk sat on a fallen log and patted the space beside him. He said this pool reminded him of mind when it stopped chasing every passing thought. Still, water reflected stars clearly. Churning water showed only confusion. Both were water, but their qualities differed based on conditions. Kay looked at the star reflections, wavering slightly on the dark surface. He could see Orion's belt in the faint smudge of the Pleiades. The monk asked if those were really stars in the water. Kay said, no, just reflections. The monk asked if reflections were less real than stars. The boy started to say yes, then hesitated. The reflection existed as truly as anything else. It was light behaving according to physical laws. Dismissing it as just reflection implied some experiences were more valid than others. The monk said this was how most people treated thoughts and emotions. They dismissed them as just mental activity while believing the physical world was more real. Or They believed thoughts were supremely real, while dismissing physical sensations. But all experiences arose in the same awareness. None were more or less valid. The key was recognizing them as experiences rather than identifying with them as self. A bat flew overhead, its erratic path visible against the stars. Kay watched it hunt invisible insects, guided by sounds humans could not hear. The monk said every creature experienced a different world based on its senses and needs. Bats lived in a universe of echoes, fish in a realm of pressure and current, humans in a world shaped by language and concept. None of these worlds were complete reality. They were all limited perspectives on something too vast for any single viewpoint to encompass. This overwhelmed Kay. If no perspective showed complete reality, how could anyone know truth? The monk said truth was not something to know, but something to be. Like water did not know wetness, but simply was wet. Seeking truth through thinking was like trying to bite your own teeth. The very effort prevented success, but relaxing into what you already were revealed truth naturally. Like sediment settling in still water, clarity emerged from stillness rather than effort. They walked back toward the original sitting spot. Kay's feet had warmed from movement, but now the cold penetrated again through his thin shoes. The monk noticed his discomfort and said pain was an interesting teacher. It demanded presence. You could not ignore it or think it away, yet fighting it only increased suffering. The middle way was acknowledgement without resistance. Yes, cold. Yes, discomfort. Yes, wish for warmth. All held in awareness without pushing or pulling. As they settled back onto the familiar boulder, something shifted in the quality of the night. The wind died completely, leaving absolute stillness. Even the river seemed to flow more quietly. The monk closed his eyes and became so motionless that he looked carved from stone. Kay watched him, wondering if he had fallen asleep. But there was an alertness in his stillness, like a cat before it pounces. Though nothing moved, everything felt intensely alive. Without warning, the monk opened his eyes and looked directly at Kay. His gaze was different now, not the gentle grandfather-like presence from before. This was vast and impersonal, like staring into deep space. Kay felt exposed, as if all his thoughts and fears were visible. He wanted to look away, but could not move. The monk said quietly that Kay was dying. Not his body, which was young and would likely live many more years, but the part of him that needed to understand everything was reaching its end. This frightened Kay more than physical death would have. Without his questions, who would he be? The searching had defined him for so long. Other children had simple identities. The baker's son who would inherit the shop, the girl who sang at festivals, the twins who excelled at mathematics. But Kay was the boy who asked why. Remove that, and nothing remained. The monk said this fear of emptiness kept people trapped in endless thinking. Better to suffer with familiar thoughts than face the unknown territory beyond them. The monk stood and walked to the river's edge. He removed his sandals and stepped into the freezing water. Kay gasped at the shock of it. The water had to be painfully cold, but the monk showed no discomfort. He waded deeper until water reached his knees. Then he stood still, looking downstream toward the distant mountains. He said the river knew something humans had forgotten. It never asked why it flowed. It simply followed the shape of the land, finding the easiest path, moment by moment. He beckoned for Kay to join him. The boy hesitated. His mother would be furious if she knew he had entered a winter river at night. He could catch pneumonia or lose feeling in his feet, but something in the monk's expression made refusal impossible. Kay removed his shoes and socks with shaking hands. The first touch of water shot through him like electricity. His body screamed at him to retreat, but he forced himself forward, step by agonizing step. When he reached the monk, his legs burned with cold that felt like fire. Tears ran down his face, though he was not sad. The monk took his hand. The old man's grip was surprisingly warm and steady. He said this was what reality felt like without the cushion of thoughts. Direct, immediate, undeniable. The mind could not argue with this level of sensation. It had to surrender to what was actually happening instead of what it imagined might happen. They stood together in the dark river while Kay's body adjusted to the temperature. Slowly, the sharp pain transformed into a different sensation. Still cold, but no longer unbearable. His legs felt alive in a way they never had before. Every nerve was awake. The monk said this was the gift of intensity. It destroyed the dream of separation. There was no Kay experiencing cold. There was just experiencing happening. The division between self and sensation dissolved in the immediacy of strong feeling. A memory arose unbidden in Kay's mind. He was very small, maybe 4 years old. His grandmother had taken him to gather wild mushrooms after rain. The forest smelled rich and alive. She showed him which mushrooms were safe and which to avoid. But what he remembered most was a moment of getting lost. He had wandered behind a large tree and suddenly could not see her. For one eternal moment, he was alone in a vast green world. Not frightened, but absolutely present. Every leaf and shadow was vivid. Then his grandmother called his name, and the spell broke. The monk squeezed his hand gently and said that quality of presence never left. It was always available beneath the layers of thinking and planning and remembering. Children accessed it naturally before they learned to live in their heads, but adults could return to it through different doors. Intense physical sensation was one door. Deep grief was another. Sudden beauty, extreme danger, or simply exhausting the mind's tendency to comment on everything until it gave up in defeat. They waded back to shore. Kay's legs were numb, but somehow he felt more awake than ever before. They sat on the boulder, and the monk produced a small towel from his robes. He gave it to Kay to dry his feet. The simple kindness of this gesture made the boy's throat tight with unexpected emotion. He realized no one had ever taught him anything with such patience. His teachers explained facts and techniques. His parents shared practical wisdom. But this monk was teaching something beyond information. He was teaching a way of being. As feeling returned to Kay's feet in prickles and tingles, the monk began telling a story. Long ago, he said, there was a scholar who memorized every text about water. He knew the chemical composition, the freezing and boiling points, the role of water in biological systems. He could lecture for hours about hydraulics and precipitation cycles. One day, he met a young girl by a stream. She was laughing and splashing, cupping water in her hands to watch it run through her fingers. The scholar began explaining the properties of water. The girl looked at him with pity and said he knew everything about water except wetness. Kay understood this was about him. He had been the scholar, studying life instead of living it. But understanding this intellectually was different from knowing it in his bones. The monk seemed to read his thoughts. He said intellectual understanding was not wrong, just incomplete, like a map of a mountain versus climbing the mountain. Both had value, but they were different kinds of knowledge. The problem came when people confused the map for the territory. They collected more and more detailed maps while never taking a single step on the actual path. An idea occurred to Kay. He asked if the monk was enlightened. The old man laughed, a sound like winter branches creaking. He said enlightenment was another concept that prevented direct experience. As soon as you imagined enlightenment as a goal, you created separation between where you were and where you wanted to be. This guaranteed you would never arrive, because arriving was always in the future. But if you dropped the idea of enlightenment, what remained? Just this moment, just awareness itself, which had been here all along, waiting patiently beneath the seeking. The monk picked up a stick and drew a circle in the snow. He said this was like the journey of understanding. People started at one point on the circle and walked around searching for meaning. They collected experiences and knowledge and insights. They met teachers and read books and practiced techniques. They walked further and further, sure that enlightenment must be just ahead. Then, one day, they looked down and realized they were standing exactly where they started. Nothing had changed except they were too exhausted to keep walking. In that exhaustion, they finally noticed what had been present at the beginning. Kay asked what had been present. The monk pointed at him and said, "You," before all the questions, before the search for meaning. The simple fact of being aware, not your thoughts about yourself or your identity or your story, just the basic awareness that experiences all these things. It never came or went. It never improved or degraded. It simply witnessed whatever arose, like space holding all objects without being affected by them. This seemed too simple to be the answer to everything. Kay said there must be more to existence than just awareness. What about love and purpose and growth? The monk nodded and said those arose within awareness, like waves on water. They were beautiful and meaningful, but they were not separate from their source. Trying to understand them without recognizing awareness was like studying waves while ignoring the ocean. You miss the fundamental unity that made everything possible. A sudden crack echoed through the night. A tree branch had broken under the weight of snow. They both turned toward the sound, then looked at each other and smiled. The monk said that was perfect teaching. No warning, no explanation, just sound happening in awareness. The body responded before thought could interfere. This was life without the filter of mind, immediate and surprising and somehow complete, even in its simplicity. Kay realized he had not thought about his questions for many minutes. The usual mental noise had quieted without him noticing. He mentioned this to the monk, who said that was natural. The mind could not maintain its frantic pace forever. Like a child having a tantrum, it eventually exhausted itself if you did not feed it with resistance or engagement. This was why meditation often felt like doing nothing. You were not trying to stop thoughts. You were just not adding fuel to their fire. They sat in comfortable silence while snow continued to fall. Each flake was unique, but they all became river or earth eventually. The monk said this was like individual lives. Each person felt separate and special, but everyone returned to the same source. Not in a sad way, but like raindrops joining the ocean. The drop did not cease to exist. It realized it had always been ocean playing at being drop. A temple bell rang in the distance. 3 measured strikes that seemed to expand through the cold air. The monk said he needed to return soon for morning meditation. The other monks would wonder if he stayed out all night. Kay felt panic at the thought of him leaving. There was still so much to learn. He had barely begun to understand what the monk was teaching. The old man sensed his distress and placed a hand on his shoulder. He said Kay already knew everything necessary, not in his thinking mind, but in his being. The river knew how to flow without instruction. His heart knew how to beat without philosophy. His lungs knew how to breathe without understanding the chemistry of oxygen. This natural wisdom operated perfectly when the thinking mind stopped interfering, like a muddy pool becoming clear when you stopped stirring it. Clarity was not achieved, but revealed. Kay asked if he should stop reading and studying completely. The monk shook his head. Knowledge was not the enemy. Believing knowledge was understanding was the trap. Learn whatever interested you, but hold it lightly, like clouds passing through your personal sky. Appreciate their shapes and movements, but do not mistake them for the sky itself. The sky remained unchanged, whether empty or full of weather. The monk stood with obvious difficulty. His joints had stiffened from sitting in the cold. Kay offered his arm for support. They walked slowly back toward the path that led to the temple. At the place where the path diverged from the river, the monk stopped. He looked at Kay with infinite kindness and said the boy was ready to stop seeking, not because he had found answers, but because he was beginning to suspect answers were the wrong questions. Before Kay could ask what he meant, the monk placed his palms together and bowed deeply. Then he turned and walked up the mountain path. His figure grew smaller and fainter until the darkness swallowed him completely. Kay stood alone by the river, feeling strangely complete. The usual urgency to understand had loosened its grip. In its place was something quieter. Not knowledge, but recognition. Not answers, but acceptance of mystery. He walked home slowly, noticing things he had passed 1,000 times without seeing. The particular curve of a pine branch, the sound his footsteps made on frozen earth, the way his breath became visible, then vanished. Each detail felt significant, yet needed no interpretation. They were just the texture of this moment, no more or less important than any other moment. But paying attention made them luminous somehow. When he reached his house, warm light glowed through the windows. His mother was awake, probably worried. He paused at the door, knowing that entering would return him to the world of explanations and concerns. But that was all right. The silence he had touched by the river was not dependent on external quiet. It was available even in the midst of ordinary life, like a deep current running beneath surface waves. His mother opened the door before he could knock. Her face showed relief and irritation in equal measure. She pulled him inside and immediately felt his cold hands. She scolded him while preparing hot tea and soup. His father appeared in his sleeping robe, looking concerned. They asked where he had been and why he stayed out so late in winter. Kay wanted to explain about the monk and the river and the dissolution of questions, but words felt inadequate. Instead, he said he had been learning something important. His mother wrapped a warm blanket around his shoulders. She said learning was good, but not at the expense of health. His father added that wisdom, without common sense, was just fancy foolishness. Kay nodded and sipped the soup gratefully. His parents continued their gentle lecture about responsibility and proper dress for weather, but their voices felt like lullabies, warm and familiar. He was not separate from them, arguing his case. He was part of this scene, this family, this moment of ordinary care. That night, Kay slept without dreams for the first time in months. When morning came, he lay in bed, listening to house sounds. His mother preparing breakfast in the kitchen. His father's saw working in the shed. A rooster calling from the neighbor's yard. These ordinary sounds felt like prayers, not asking for anything, just announcing presence. The sun made patterns through his window that moved slowly across the floor. He watched them without needing to understand what they meant. At breakfast, his parents watched him carefully. He ate with attention, tasting the rice and pickled vegetables as if for the first time. His mother asked if he felt well. He said yes, better than he had in a long time. She exchanged glances with his father. They were not used to this calm version of their son. Where was the boy who barely touched his food because his mind was elsewhere? Who asked endless questions about things that had no answers? This peaceful child seemed like a stranger. Over the following days, Kay continued visiting the river, but not with the same desperation. Sometimes he brought his journal, but left it closed. Other times he helped fishermen mend their nets, just to have something to do with his hands. The old men taught him different knots and told stories about storms and catches. They did not ask why he had stopped his constant questioning. They simply accepted his quiet presence like they accepted changing weather. One afternoon, his grandmother visited. She sat beside him on the porch and worked on her embroidery. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, she said he seemed different, calmer, but also sadder somehow. Kay considered this. Was he sad? Perhaps. The burning need to understand everything had been like a constant companion. Without it, he felt a kind of grief, like losing someone he had known his whole life. Even if that someone had been exhausting, their absence left emptiness. His grandmother nodded and continued her needlework. She said, emptiness was not empty. It was full of potential, like a field after harvest. It looked barren, but underneath, the soil was resting and renewing. Come spring, new growth would emerge. But forcing growth in winter only damaged what wanted to happen naturally. Sometimes the kindest thing was patient waiting. Trust that life knew its own timing. That evening, Kay returned to the river earlier than usual. The spot where he had met the monk looked ordinary in daylight, just rocks and water and overhanging trees. No sign that anything profound had happened here. He sat on the familiar boulder and let his mind drift. Thoughts arose about school and friends and what he would do when he grew up, but they felt lighter now, like butterflies, landing briefly before moving on. As darkness gathered, he noticed someone approaching. His heart jumped, thinking the monk had returned. But it was Master Yoshida, his old teacher from the village school. The elderly man settled beside him with careful movements. He said he had heard Kay was spending less time with books. Was he giving up on learning? Kay explained he was learning differently now, less from words and more from direct experience. Master Yoshida smiled and pulled out a small flask of tea. He poured 2 cups and handed one to Kay. The steam rose between them in the cooling air. He said there were seasons for different kinds of learning. First came accumulation, gathering knowledge like collecting firewood. Then came discrimination, sorting useful from unnecessary. Finally came integration, where knowledge became wisdom through lived experience. Most people got stuck in the first stage, always gathering more without processing what they had. He told Kay about his own youth, how he had memorized countless texts and could recite them perfectly. He thought memory was understanding. Then one day, his teacher asked him to explain a simple phrase about water finding its level. He gave elaborate technical explanations about gravity and pressure. His teacher shook his head and poured tea until it overflowed the cup. He said that was all the phrase meant. Water naturally seeks balance. No amount of explanation improved on direct demonstration. They sat together, watching stars emerge. Master Yoshida pointed out constellations and told their stories, but he also left space for silence between tales. He said stories were fingers pointing at mystery. Some people studied fingers their whole lives without looking where they pointed. Others dismissed fingers as useless without recognizing they offered direction. Wisdom was using the finger to find the moon, then forgetting the finger in the moon's beauty. A fish jumped nearby, its splash bright in the darkness. Master Yoshida laughed and said fish knew something humans forgot. They never wondered if they were swimming correctly. They just swam. Each movement was perfectly calibrated to water resistance and current without conscious calculation. This was not ignorance, but embodied intelligence. The body knew things the mind could never fully grasp, like how to balance on two legs or transform food into energy. He stood to leave, then paused. He told Kay that giving up questions was not the same as finding peace. Peace came from accepting questions without needing answers, like living with weather. You did not control it or understand it completely. You just noticed patterns and adapted. Rain meant staying inside or wearing protection. Sun meant different activities. Fighting weather was madness. Working with it was wisdom. After he left, Kay remained by the river, thinking about these words. He realized he had been fighting his own nature, like fighting weather. His mind produced questions, like clouds produced rain. Trying to stop them was as futile as commanding storms, but he could choose how to respond. Let them pass through without resistance. Notice them without attachment. Even appreciate their beauty without getting drenched. The next night brought freezing rain that turned the world into glass. Every branch and blade of grass was encased in ice. Kay watched from his window as moonlight transformed the landscape into something magical. He wanted to go to the river, but his mother forbade it. The paths would be treacherous. People had broken bones on nights like this, so he sat by the window and practiced being present with what was available. The sound of ice forming, the particular quality of cold against glass, the way his breath fogged the window, then slowly cleared. When the weather improved, he returned to find the river changed. Ice shelves had formed along the banks. The water moved differently around new obstacles. His familiar boulder was glazed and slippery. He had to find a different place to sit. This seemed like teaching. Nothing remained constant. Even ancient rivers changed course over time. Attachment to specific conditions caused suffering when conditions inevitably shifted. As he explored the altered shoreline, he discovered something unexpected, a small shelter made from branches and canvas, carefully hidden behind large rocks. Inside were meditation cushions and a few books wrapped in waterproof cloth. This must be where the monk stayed during his visits. Kay felt like an intruder, but curiosity won. He examined the books. They were not religious texts, but poetry. Simple verses about seasons and mountains and the way light fell through leaves. One poem particularly caught his attention. It described a student who traveled thousands of miles seeking a famous teacher. When he finally arrived, exhausted and expectant, the teacher was gardening. The student announced he had come for wisdom. The teacher handed him a watering can and pointed at wilting plants. They spent the entire visit tending vegetables. Only later did the student realize the teaching. Wisdom was not separate from ordinary activity. It was the quality of attention brought to whatever needed doing. Kay carefully rewrapped the books and left everything as he found it. But knowing the monk might return made him visit more often. Each night he checked the shelter for signs of occupation, fresh footprints or rearranged cushions. But weeks passed with no change. The possibility of meeting the teacher again became another attachment to release. Either it would happen or it would not. His watching would not influence the outcome. Meanwhile, life in the village continued its patterns. His parents relaxed as Kay began participating more in daily activities. He helped with spring planting preparation. He joined other young people for festival planning. He even laughed at jokes instead of analyzing their meaning. But something in him remained watchful, not seeking, but available, like keeping a door open in case an old friend visited. One evening during the spring equinox celebration, he noticed unusual activity at the temple. Monks were preparing for someone important. Extra flowers arranged, the meditation hall cleaned with special care. When he asked, they said a renowned teacher was visiting, someone who rarely left his mountain hermitage. Kay's pulse quickened. Could it be the old monk from the river? The next morning, the entire village gathered at the temple. Everyone wanted to see this famous teacher. Kay stood at the back, craning to see over taller heads. When the visitor emerged, his heart sank. This was not his monk. This teacher was younger, robust, with a commanding presence. He gave a complex talk about consciousness and reality that reminded Kay of his old way of thinking. All concepts and frameworks and elaborate explanations. People seemed impressed, but Kay felt disappointed. Not in the teacher, who was obviously sincere and learned, but in the difference between this performance and the simple pointing his river monk had offered. One was about knowledge. The other was about recognition, like the difference between describing water and offering a cup to someone thirsty. Both had value, but served different needs. After the talk, people lined up to ask questions. Kay started to leave, but something made him stay. When his turn came, he asked the teacher about the difference between understanding and knowing. The teacher launched into a detailed philosophical response about epistemology and direct perception. But then he paused, studying Kay's face. He said the boy already knew the answer, or he would not have asked that particular question. Sometimes questions were really statements in disguise. Walking home, Kay reflected on this. Had his question been a statement, perhaps he was saying that understanding and knowing were different. Understanding happened in the mind through concepts. Knowing happened in the being through experience. You could understand love by reading poetry and psychology, but knowing love meant feeling it move through you like blood. No amount of understanding substituted for that direct knowing. I want to pause here and speak to you directly for a moment. Perhaps you recognize this distinction in your own life, the difference between thinking about peace and actually feeling peaceful, between understanding that you should relax and actually releasing tension from your shoulders and jaw. Even now, you might notice the difference between hearing these words and letting them sink deeper than thought. Feel how your breath naturally slows when you stop trying to understand and simply receive. This is what Kay was discovering. The body knows how to rest when the mind stops insisting on comprehension. That night, Kay had a dream. He was underwater, but could breathe normally. Fish swam through him as if he were made of river. He felt their scales and fins pass through his chest and arms. It was not frightening, but deeply peaceful. He was not separate from the water or fish. He was part of the same flowing system. When he woke, the feeling lingered. That sense of being, continuous with everything rather than isolated in skin. He returned to the river just before dawn. Mist rose from the water like ghost veils. The world felt suspended between night and day, neither fully one nor the other. In that threshold space, he saw a figure sitting on his boulder. His heart leaped, but he approached slowly, not wanting to disturb whoever it was. As he got closer, he recognized the hunched shoulders and thin frame. The monk had returned, but something was different. The old man seemed frailer, more translucent, as if he were partially made of mist himself. When Kay sat beside him, the monk turned slowly. His face showed recognition and something else, a kind of completion, like someone who had finished a long task and could finally rest. He spoke in a voice barely above whisper. He said he had come to say goodbye. His body was failing and he would not walk this far again. Kay felt grief rise in his chest, but also gratitude. The monk had used precious energy to visit once more. He asked if there was final teaching he should know. The monk smiled and shook his head. Everything necessary had already been transmitted, not through words, but through presence. The way they had sat together in silence, the way they had entered cold water, the way they had watched snow fall. These shared moments were the teaching. Everything else was commentary. The monk reached into his robes and pulled out a smooth river stone. He placed it in Kay's palm and closed the boy's fingers around it. He said, when thoughts became too loud, hold this stone. Feel its weight and temperature and texture. Let it return you to the simplicity of physical reality, not as escape, but as reminder. The foundation beneath all thinking was simple awareness of what is. The stone would be an anchor to that ground. They sat together as the sun rose through mist. Colors shifted from gray to gold to green as light revealed the world. Birds began their morning songs. A deer came to drink, saw them, and continued anyway. Life went on with or without human understanding. The monk said this was the deepest teaching. Life did not need our mental commentary. It was already complete. We were not outside looking in. We were inside looking around, part of the same vast happening. The monk stood with extreme difficulty. Kay offered to walk him to the temple, but he declined. This last journey he needed to make alone, but he thanked Kay for being such an earnest student. The boy's sincere questioning had reminded him why teaching mattered. Not to provide answers, but to exhaust questions until only wonder remained. In that wonder, everything was teaching, every leaf and stone and passing cloud. Before walking away, the monk turned back one last time. He said, that Kay might feel alone after this parting. But aloneness was just another concept. In reality, everything was connected through the same awareness. The consciousness, looking through the monk's old eyes, was the same consciousness looking through Kay's young ones. Only the windows differed. When you realized this, you were never alone. You were always in the company of yourself, wearing countless disguises. Kay watched the monk's slow progress up the path. Several times the old man stopped to rest against trees. Each pause seemed longer than the last. Finally, he disappeared around a bend. Kay knew with absolute certainty he would never see him again in this form. But something of their meeting would continue, not as memory, but as a change in how he met each moment. The monk had not given him knowledge. He had shown him how to stop needing it. The stone in his hand felt warm from being held. He examined it closely for the first time. It was ordinary gray river rock, smooth from countless years of water. No special markings or unusual properties, just stone being stone. Yet holding it felt significant, not because of what it was, but because of what it represented. The simplicity on the other side of complexity, the answer that was not an answer, but the end of questioning. He stayed by the river until noon, watching water and sky and the movement of clouds. His mind produced thoughts, but they felt different now, less urgent, less solid, like background music rather than dominant melody. He could notice them without being controlled by them. This thought about lunch, that memory of yesterday, this wondering about tomorrow, all arising and passing in the space of awareness that remained unchanged by their content. When he finally walked home, his mother was hanging laundry. She looked at him with concern and asked if he was all right. He said yes, though someone important had gone away. She assumed he meant a friend from school and offered comfort. He accepted her embrace, smelling the familiar scent of soap and cooking smoke in her clothes. She did not need to understand his loss to offer motherly care. Love operated below the level of explanation. Over the following days, news spread through the village. The old monk from the mountain hermitage had died. He had been discovered in meditation posture, having passed peacefully during the night. The temple would hold ceremonies, but he had requested no elaborate funeral. His body would be cremated, and the ashes scattered in the river he had loved. When Kay heard this, he touched the stone in his pocket. The monk's last gift felt heavier now, not with sadness, but with significance. He attended the simple ceremony with a few monks and villagers who had known the teacher. They spoke of his kindness and wisdom, his ability to convey profound teachings through ordinary activities. One monk told how the teacher had helped him understand emptiness by having him pour water between cups for an entire afternoon. Another described learning about impermanence by watching the teacher feed birds, seeing how they came and went without attachment. When the ashes were released into the river, Kay watched them disappear instantly into the current. The monk had become part of the water he had sat beside for so many years. Now he would flow past the village and into the valleys beyond. He would evaporate into clouds and fall as rain. He would enter roots of trees and rise through leaves. His body would continue teaching about cycles and connection long after words ended. That night, Kay could not sleep, not from busy thoughts, but from a kind of energized peace. He sat by his window, watching stars wheel slowly overhead. The night sounds seemed louder and more detailed than before. He could distinguish between different insects and frogs. He could hear the particular way wind moved through various trees. His senses felt cleaned, like windows after rain. Everything appeared more vivid, yet required no interpretation. I wonder if you have experienced nights like this, when sleep feels less important than presence, when the darkness itself seems alive and breathing. Perhaps you notice this quality now, the way night holds both rest and wakefulness without conflict. Feel how your body knows exactly how tired or alert it is without your mind needing to decide. This natural intelligence operates constantly beneath our conscious interference. Like Kay, discovering he could trust his organism's wisdom. In the weeks that followed, Kay developed new rhythms. He woke early without forcing himself. His body seemed to know when dawn approached. He would sit quietly before the household stirred, not meditating formally, but just being present with morning. Then he would help with breakfast and daily tasks. His parents stopped commenting on his change. It had become the new normal. Their anxious boy had transformed into a calm young man. He still visited the river, but less compulsively. Sometimes he brought friends who wanted to fish or swim. He taught them knots the fishermen had shown him. He pointed out birds and plants without lecturing about them. When they asked why he spent so much time here, he said the river helped him think more clearly. This was true, though not in the way they assumed. The river helped by washing away unnecessary thinking. One friend, named Taro, became particularly curious. He had noticed Kay's transformation and wanted to understand it. He asked directly what had changed. Kay considered how to explain without sounding crazy or superior. Finally, he said he had stopped trying so hard to figure everything out. Taro laughed and said that sounded too simple. Kay agreed it was simple, but not easy. Like learning to swim by relaxing instead of fighting water. To demonstrate, he led Taro to a calm pool in the river. He told him to float on his back. Taro tried, but kept sinking because he was tense. Kay said to trust the water to hold him. Stop trying to float and just allow floating to happen. After many attempts, Taro suddenly got it. His body released its holding, and the water supported him perfectly. He laughed at how obvious it was once he stopped trying. Kay said understanding life was similar. Stop trying to grasp it, and it supported you naturally. They spent the afternoon practicing this kind of effortless effort, not just in water, but in other activities. Throwing stones without aiming too hard, walking without planning each step, even having conversation without preparing words in advance. Taro said it felt like being drunk, but in a clear way. Kay said it was more like being sober for the first time. Most people were drunk on thoughts and concepts. This was returning to natural clarity. As summer deepened, the village prepared for the harvest festival. Kay found himself involved in planning and preparation, not from obligation, but from genuine interest in contributing. He helped build the temporary shrine. He practiced music with others for the celebration. He even agreed to help with the children's games, though he had always found them chaotic before. His presence seemed to calm the younger ones. They sensed his steadiness and orbited around it. His grandmother watched all this with knowing eyes. One evening, she pulled him aside and said he had found what she called the middle way. Not rejecting the world for spiritual pursuits, not losing himself in worldly activities, but participating fully while maintaining inner quietness. She said this was harder than becoming a monk or a merchant. It required constant balancing, like walking on a rope bridge. Too rigid, and you would break. Too loose, and you would fall. The key was responsive adjustment to each moment. She told him about her own youth, how she had wanted to enter a convent after her first child died. She thought spiritual life would ease her pain, but the abbess had sent her home, saying her path was through family and ordinary life. She was angry at first. It seemed the abbess was denying her peace, but slowly she understood. Peace was not a place or lifestyle. It was a quality of being that could exist anywhere. The night of the festival, the whole village gathered by the river. Lanterns floated on the water like fallen stars. Music and laughter filled the air. Kay sat with his family, eating festival food and watching performances. Everything felt dreamlike, but not unreal. More like recognizing the dream quality that had always been present, but unnoticed. The decorations and costumes and rituals were all temporary arrangements. Tomorrow, they would be memory, but tonight, they were perfect in their impermanence. During the dancing, a young woman named May asked him to join. He had always refused before, too self-conscious about looking foolish. But tonight, he accepted. They moved with the crowd in simple patterns that required no skill, just following the person ahead and letting the person behind follow you. The music seemed to move through him rather than around him. He was not dancing. Dancing was happening. Later, sitting by the river, while others continued celebrating, May asked what he thought about during quiet moments. He said he tried not to think about anything in particular, just notice what was present, the sound of water, the feeling of ground, the movement of breath. She said that sounded boring. He laughed and agreed it would be boring if you were waiting for something interesting to happen. But if you were just present without expectation, everything became interesting, even boredom itself. She asked him to teach her this way of being present. He said it could not really be taught, only pointed toward, like showing someone where the moon was, but not being able to see it for them. She would have to discover her own way of arriving at simplicity, but he could share what had helped him. The main thing was exhausting the mind's tendency to seek until it gave up from fatigue. Then, what remained was natural presence. They tried sitting quietly together, but May kept giggling. She said the silence made her nervous. He said nervousness was perfect. Just feel it completely without trying to change it. Let it be as nervous as it wanted. Usually, we fought uncomfortable feelings which made them stronger, but fully allowing them caused them to complete their cycle and dissolve, like waves that seemed powerful, but were really just water returning to water. As the festival wound down, families began departing. Parents carried sleeping children. Elderly folks leaned on younger arms. The lanterns had mostly burned out or floated away. Only a few musicians remained, playing slower songs for whoever wanted to listen. Kay helped clean up, collecting trash and stacking benches. The transition from celebration to ordinary was another teaching. How quickly special became normal. How normal could become special through attention. Walking home with his parents, his mother took his arm. She said she was proud of who he was becoming, not for any achievement, but for his growing kindness and presence. His father added that wisdom without warmth was just cleverness, but Kay had found both. They did not understand his journey, but they recognized its fruit. This moved him more than any philosophical validation could have. That night, lying in bed, he held the river stone and remembered the monk, not with sadness, but with gratitude. Their brief meeting had changed everything, by changing nothing except perception. He was still the same person in the same life, but now he saw it all differently, like cleaning foggy glasses and realizing the world had always been clear. The distortion was in the seeing, not the seen. A mosquito buzzed near his ear. Usually, he would hunt it down or cover his head. Tonight, he just listened to its high whine. Such a small creature, making such presence known. When it landed on his arm, he watched it without moving, the tiny probe searching for blood, the slight itch beginning. Then he gently blew it away, not from aversion, but from preference. He could allow its existence while maintaining boundaries. This felt like wisdom, neither rejecting nor accepting everything, just responding appropriately to what arose. Through the window came the sound of the river, always there, whether noticed or not, like awareness itself. You could forget it during busy days, but it never actually left. It was the constant background that made foreground possible, the silence between sounds, the space between thoughts, the pause between breaths, always available when you remembered to notice. Let me speak directly to you now as you rest in darkness. Perhaps you feel the weight of your own body settling deeper into bed, the way muscles release their holding one by one, your shoulders dropping, your jaw softening, your hands uncurling like flowers. This is what Kay discovered. The body knows how to rest when the mind stops managing every detail. Feel how breath happens without your control. Heart beats without permission. Healing occurs without understanding how. This intelligence operates constantly beneath conscious thought. Kay's story continued for many years after that summer. He grew up and married May, who never quite learned to sit still, but loved his calmness. They had children who asked endless questions, just as he once had. He became a teacher, not of philosophy, but of practical skills, woodworking and fishing and garden tending. He taught through demonstration rather than explanation. Students learned by watching and copying until understanding arose from experience. He continued visiting the river throughout his life, sometimes with family or friends, often alone in early morning. The boulder where he had met the monk eventually wore away. The landscape changed through floods and seasons, but the river itself continued, always different and always the same, like consciousness flowing through temporary forms, taking shape as thoughts and feelings and sensations without being limited by any of them. In his old age, Kay became known as a wise elder, though he claimed no special knowledge. When young people came seeking advice, he would take them to the river. He would have them sit quietly and watch water move. If they grew restless, he would say patience. If they fell asleep, he would say attention. If they asked what they were supposed to learn, he would say nothing. Learning was the problem. Recognition was the solution. One boy reminded him particularly of himself, intense and earnest, full of burning questions. The boy would argue that life must have meaning and purpose. Kay would agree, but add that meaning was not something to figure out. It was something to embody. Like water, did not understand wetness, but simply was wet. Humans did not need to understand meaning to live meaningfully. The boy would grow frustrated and storm off, but he always returned. Something about sitting by the river with this calm old man satisfied a need deeper than answers. Eventually, the boy's questions began to quiet, not from getting answers, but from exhausting the question mechanism itself, like a machine running out of fuel. What remained was simple presence, the sound of water, the feeling of stone, the movement of clouds. Years later, after Kay had died peacefully in his sleep, the grown boy would bring his own students to the river. He would tell them about an old man who taught by not teaching, who answered by not answering, who showed that wisdom was not adding something new, but recognizing what was already present. The students would look confused. He would tell them to watch the river, and their confusion would either clarify or cease to matter. This is how wisdom transmits, not through words or concept, but through presence and pointing. One person discovers peace and naturally radiates it. Others feel that peace and want to understand it, but understanding is the barrier. Peace exists before and after understanding. It is the ground on which understanding stands. Try to grasp it and it disappears. Relax, and it is everywhere. I notice the night has grown deeper as this story moved through its seasons. Perhaps your breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of these words. Your thoughts may have quieted, like Kay's questions gradually dissolved. This is natural. The mind cannot maintain vigilance forever. Eventually, it trusts enough to rest. In that resting, what you have always been becomes apparent, not through effort, but through exhaustion of effort. The story of Kay is every person's story in different form. We all begin with burning questions about meaning and purpose. We all seek answers through books, in teachers, and experience. We all eventually discover that the seeking itself maintains the sense of separation from what we seek. When seeking ends, not from finding, but from fatigue, we recognize we are what we were looking for. The awareness reading these words, the consciousness knowing this moment, the simple sense of being that needs no explanation. This does not mean questions are wrong or seeking is bad. They are natural stages, like childhood and adolescence. But maturity means growing beyond the need for constant answers, learning to live with mystery, dancing with uncertainty, finding peace in not knowing. This feels like death to the part of us that equates understanding with control, but it is actually birth into a larger life, one that includes confusion and clarity equally. Feel now how your body rests in this moment. Without your conscious management, countless processes continue: digestion, in circulation, in cellular repair. The complex becomes simple when you stop trying to understand it. Just as a river needs no knowledge of hydraulics to flow perfectly, your body needs no medical degree to heal. Your awareness needs no philosophy to be aware. If thoughts arise about tomorrow or yesterday, notice them like you would notice clouds passing outside a window. Interesting, but not requiring action. If emotions surface, feel them like weather moving through your inner landscape. They will complete their cycle and pass. If sleepiness comes, welcome it like an old friend arriving at the perfect moment. If wakefulness persists, that is equally fine. There is no right state to achieve. There is only this moment and your experience of it. The boy who tried too hard to understand eventually became a man who understood trying too hard was the only problem. Not through giving up, but through giving in, surrendering to the intelligence that operates when personal will relaxes. Like sleep, comes not from forcing, but from allowing. Peace arrives not from achieving, but from ceasing to seek it elsewhere. It was always here, waiting patiently beneath the noise of seeking. As this story completes its circle, perhaps you feel a similar completion. The questions you brought to this listening may not be answered, but their urgency may have softened. Like Kay, discovering that mystery was not a problem to solve, but a reality to inhabit. We are all living questions that do not require answers. We are awareness itself, playing at being separate individuals, seeking reunion with what we never left. The river continues flowing outside villages everywhere, sometimes carrying monks and students into meeting, sometimes reflecting stars and moon, always teaching through example rather than words, showing how to move with gravity rather than against it, how to find the path of least resistance, how to persist without forcing, how to change while remaining essentially unchanged. If you are still awake, another gentle story waits nearby, but there is no hurry to find it. Rest here as long as feels right. Let these words settle like sediment in still water until clarity emerges naturally. Trust that understanding will arise in its own time without your effort. The trying was always the only obstacle. When it ends, what you have always known becomes beautifully obvious, simple as river stones, clear as water, present as this breath, complete as this moment of rest dissolving into dream and silence.